Set.
He does.
We'll get underway.
Joe, some of the disappointment with Robbie Henshaw out for the rest of the Six Nations.
Yeah. It was something we feared after the game, just with the mechanism of injury. But you always hope against hope that something may not have happened and you may get through without any sort of serious injury. Unfortunately, that shoulder is not going to be good for probably another 3 or 4 months.
And good news with Ty Furlong, you saw him stretching out there. Is he likely to be ready for Wales?
Yeah, I think so. He's gone really well. Ian Henderson's probably a little bit ahead of him. Ian felt he could have played the second half. We took him off as a precaution, and you saw him working with Ty there. He's pretty much 100%. But we're just kind of staging their re-entry. So Ian could have trained today, but he's also played a lot of minutes, and so we're just managing him. And at the same time, James Ryan has also made really good progress. So those two are back in the mix. And Ty, he ran 75% speed today. He did change of direction, so he's not far away from potentially being able to train fully on Tuesday.
How key is he to have him back for that Wales game?
Well, yeah, he's a starting player for the British and Irish Lions. That speaks volumes for the progress he's made over the last couple of years. And at the same time, John Ryan's played a fair bit for us, and Andrew Porter, the 77 minutes he was required to front four, I thought he did really well against Italy. So, what you've got to have is depth in your squad, and you've got to have confidence in that depth, and that's what we'll go to now. And if it's not required, that's all well and good, and if it is, we'll keep forging ahead with the players we do have available.
So it's never a good time for a player to get an injury for you or the player themselves, but in some ways is this the best time, if you know what I mean, because it gives you time to plan, it gives you time to think about combinations, it gives you time to kind of reassess ahead of the next game.
Yeah, and I think given our history 2 years ago when we got stung and we had a captain's run to change over injuries when Johnny Sexton trains on a Friday and then he's ruled out for a Sunday game. Those sort of tight time frames, that's what you want to try to avoid if you can. So in the end, at least we've got a little bit of time, and at least we can get a little bit of preparation done with some combinations. So that may extend to a couple of guys coming in next week to just build a bit of depth in a couple of positions as well.
For the next game against Wales, obviously you kept it pretty tight in France, got the win, did what you needed to do against Italy. You were able to throw the ball around, get a few tries. Does the game plan for the next game have to be kind of somewhere in between? Does there have to be that kind of balance?
I think sometimes you have an intent, and I think we showed our intent in the early stages of the France game. We did move the ball around. The very first ball we had was dry off the top of a line out, therefore we went to the edge and made about a 25-metre gain. So, I think we had an intent to play a certain way against France, but then it probably wasn't as visible on the TV screen. I know those people who were there, and I know the players felt that it was very greasy on top, and I think that maybe contributed to a couple of the injuries that occurred because feet were slipping out from underneath people, and we did get a few kind of non-contact injuries in that match.
How wary are you of Wales, considering they're obviously going to have a bit between their teeth after TMOs and lots of discussion about that?
Yeah, I know that the feedback coming out of the English camp is that there's a knock-on from Steph Evans before the try scored. So, I think there's always going to be contention around decisions that get made, and depending on which side of the fence you're on, you're saying one thing or the other. So I think when the game is done and dusted, you can't really do too much about it, and there's been frustrations for all teams over time where results have gone a certain way because of a particular decision. So it swings and roundabouts. I know that Wales will have the bit between their teeth anyway because they're still very much in the competition. They've got 6 points from 2 games, which is a pretty good effort considering they had a high-flying Scotland team first up, and they had a very resolute English team at Twickenham in their second match. So they've got a bonus point in each match and a 4-pointer obviously to add to that.
Joe, what was Ian's problem? His injury?
He just had a bit of tightening in his hamstring, in his quad, and he had a bit of a bump in the leg as well, which just causes the leg to be a bit tight. So. As I say, he could have played on. We're managing him at the moment. We thought initially that he trained fully today, but the ground was very soft, and it means that rear chain with the calves and hamstring and gluteal muscles get worked very hard in those conditions. So we just thought we'd err on the side of caution.
And from your point of view, David has spoken there about the worthwhile of this session, blowing off a few cobwebs. From your point of view, what do you take out of these conversations?
Well, the first thing is that it's investment in our under-20 side, of which, over the last 2 years, if you look at our side, and James Ryan and Andrew Porter and some of the other guys who've come through, very recently, Dan Levy is still not that far out of the 20s. Joey Carberry is not that far out of the 20s. So we've got those sorts of players who are coming through into our frame. Jacob Stockdale's another one. So the first thing is we get to identify and we'll have a bit of lunch with the under-20s, and you get the opportunity to get to know a few of them, and at the same time for us, we're made to work pretty hard. They're young, they're fit, they move the ball around. It's non-contact mostly, so we can't try to bully them. It's a really good hit out for us, and I think you would have seen, right from the start that there's good energy out there when we go up against the 20s.
Sorry, Joe, I wanted to ask you, what qualities and aspects do you look for in the young players in the under-20s when you decide, okay, he's a guy that I think is worth investing in and bringing into the first team?
It depends. Sometimes you see people in different circumstances. You see James Ryan as a 16-year-old, and you see that he's playing a level ahead in the under-18s as a 16-year-old, and he's dominating phases of play. You see a guy like Jordan Lama in St Andrews is a super standout individual, and then he blends into teams without too much bother in transition. So you see those things, and then you're looking for skill, but also game sense. There are some players who just have a certain game sense, and Joey Carberry has a game sense. He can play at fullback, he can play at 9, 10, 12, and he that versatility makes him a real strength for us coming off the bench, and it allows him to blend into our training really well. So it's different things for different players in different positions, and I guess over the years, sometimes it's just plain physical power, and Andrew Porter generates that, as you saw, in the weekend.
Last couple of guys about Jordan Lama real quick. There's an awful lot of pressure on him. Obviously, he's been producing week after week for Leinster. He's pulling spectacular tries out of thin air at times. Is there nearly too much pressure on him, and is he maybe putting too much pressure on himself to produce that kind of performance on the international stage, maybe?
No, I don't think so. I've got to know Jordan over the last couple of years. He's not a guy who puts massive pressure on himself. He just loves playing the game. He's excited by any challenge that comes up. Yes, I'm sure he was nervous coming on, first test match, test debut, out of Viva in a Six Nations game. That's big, but at the same time, what was good for Jordan is that he had Keith Earls at 13, he had Rob Carney at 15, so that gives you a little bit of security, and at the same time, when he came on, I think the score was 35-0, so the game isn't in the balance. So it was a pretty good opportunity to feed him into the environment, I think.
Can I just ask one final question? You said about a year or two ago that strength and depth is one of the lessons you learned from the last World Cup. With the injury to Robbie Henshaw in the centre, how is that plan working out in terms of options for the centre? I mean, is this the big test of that kind of game plan to develop that strength and depth?
It's a huge test, because I think people have gone right past Jared Payne, who, the last time we won the Six Nations, played the whole time at 13 and was unbelievably good for us. And he was one of the guys that we lost in the World Cup. We'd already not had Gary Ringrose available, so we were already down 2 centres. Now we're down a third centre for us. So, if you're looking at strength and depth, You've got 4 provinces. We're down to our 4th centre. And look, this is a great test for us. I think there was a lot of focus on who other teams didn't have. And look, we're always excited about who we do have, and we focus on who we do have. But there was a lot of probably glossing over of the probably 12 guys we had unavailable. And at the same time, there was a lot of excitement about people saying that we were in really good shape. So if we can keep people positive, despite losing, Josh Van der Fleer now, on top of having guys like Jamie Heaslip and Sean O'Brien, those sort of guys not available already, Tommy O'Donnell, then I think we're in a pretty good place. How good a place? Well, I think we'll all be watching against Wales, and we might find out a little bit.
Gary, is there a possibility for the Welsh game, or does he have to play this weekend for Leinster to prove fitness, or what's the situation there?
I don't think Gary's going to play this weekend at this stage, but again, I haven't spoken to Leo since Sunday, so that may have changed because he was making really good progress. He was, he was on the cusp of being involved. Probably a week ahead of where Sean O'Brien is at the moment, so it meant that Gary, for us, if he doesn't play, it wouldn't rule him out necessarily. Just because he knows what he's doing, he's slotted in, he was outstanding in the last Six Nations, so he would be an option, and he may spend a couple of days next week with us, and that will allow us to make a decision. And if it's not us, I'm pretty sure it'll be Leinster, because he is due back.
Okay, guys, we're going to shut down the broadcast live version and we'll go into the embargo written word. Thank you.